There's a kind of anxiety that never gets caught because it looks like the opposite of a problem. It looks like productivity, like discipline, like someone who just has their life exceptionally together. They're the person who never misses a deadline, never forgets a detail, never shows up unprepared. And the world looks at them and says, "I wish I had your work ethic." What the world doesn't see is the clenched jaw underneath the composure, the 2 a.m. mental rehearsal, the fact that this person hasn't actually rested in longer than they can remember. This is high-functioning anxiety, and the reason most people miss it is because the symptoms don't look like symptoms. They look like strengths. The person doesn't appear to be struggling. They appear to be winning, and that's exactly what makes it so exhausting and so invisible at the same time. In this video, we're looking at 7 quiet signs of it, and for each one, we're naming 2 things: the behavior everyone sees and admires, and the cost it's quietly charging you behind the scenes. Because high-functioning anxiety doesn't just run your performance, it runs a tab, and the tab always comes due. Let's frame this before we start. High-functioning anxiety is not a clinical diagnosis. It's a pattern. It describes people whose anxiety doesn't shut them down. It drives them forward. Instead of freezing, they perform. Instead of withdrawing, they over-prepare. The anxiety is the engine, and the output is competence. Think of it as the productivity trap. The anxiety generates the performance, and the performance generates praise, and the praise convinces everyone, including the person, that nothing is wrong. The system feeds itself, and the longer it runs, the harder it becomes to see that the engine powering the success is the same one eroding the person from the inside. What makes this different from regular ambition or healthy discipline is one thing: you can't stop. Ambition lets you rest after the finish line. High-functioning anxiety moves the finish line. There's always another thing to prepare for, another detail to check, another scenario to plan for. The machine doesn't have a satisfied setting, it only has more. Number 1, you're always the most prepared person in the room. You've read the brief twice. You've anticipated the questions. You've rehearsed your answers, revised them, and rehearsed them again. When you walk into a meeting or a conversation or a dinner, you're not winging it. You've already played the whole thing through in your head multiple times, including the version where everything goes wrong. People admire this. They call you thorough, detail-oriented, on top of things, and you are. But here's the cost nobody sees. You've lost the ability to show up unprepared. Spontaneity isn't fun for you. It's a threat. An unplanned evening, an unscripted conversation, a last-minute change of plans. These don't feel like adventure. They feel like the floor disappearing. The preparation isn't a choice. It's a compulsion dressed as competence. And the cost is that you can never just arrive. You have to build the arrival first. And the building takes hours that nobody sees. Hours spent rehearsing, revising, scenario planning, while the rest of the world shows up and improvises. Your preparation is exhausting before the event even starts. No sir. Number 2, you reply to messages almost immediately. Every time. Your inbox is pristine. Your response time is legendary. People joke about it. Do you ever sleep? And you laugh because the answer's complicated. You don't reply fast because you're efficient. You reply fast because an unanswered message sits in your body like an undetonated charge. The longer it sits, the louder the hum. The only way to quiet it is to respond. The cost. You've trained every person in your life to expect instant access. And now any delay, even a natural healthy one, triggers a secondary anxiety loop. Are they upset that I didn't reply? Did the delay cause a problem? Should I apologize for taking 20 minutes to respond to something that didn't require urgency? You've built a cage of your own responsiveness, and the bars are made of other people's expectations that you installed yourself. Number 3, you arrive at every situation with a plan B, sometimes C and D. You've mapped the restaurant's parking, the alternate route if there's traffic, and what you'll order if your first choice isn't available. For a work presentation, you've prepared for the projector failing, the Wi-Fi dropping, and the client asking a question you didn't anticipate. People call this smart planning, and it is. But it's also a nervous system that cannot tolerate uncertainty. The cost. You can never trust that Plan A will simply work. Every good outcome feels provisional. Even when things go perfectly, there's no relief, just the quiet knowledge that the backup plans you didn't need today will need to be rebuilt for tomorrow. You're living in permanent contingency, and contingency isn't planning, it's anxiety with a clipboard. And your body knows. The tight grip on the steering wheel, even when the road is clear, the way your stomach clenches when someone says, "Let's just see what happens." Uncertainty doesn't feel like openness to you. It feels like free fall. Number 4, you can't hand things off to other people. It's not that you think you're better than everyone else. It's that the thought of someone else doing it differently, imperfectly, out of your control, produces a physical reaction, a tightening in the chest, a restlessness that only resolves when you take it back. "It's just faster if I do it myself," is the sentence your anxiety wrote and your mouth delivers. People read this as being a hard worker, a perfectionist, someone who cares deeply about quality. And you do. But the cost is that you carry everything alone. Every project, every responsibility, every invisible load. Your body is keeping score, the tension in your shoulders, the headaches, the insomnia, the quiet resentment you can't quite name because you're the one who volunteered. The delegation you can't do isn't about trust, it's about control. And the need for control is what anxiety sounds like when it's wearing a work shirt. Number 5, you cannot sit still without doing something productive. Waiting rooms need a phone, commutes need a podcast, weekends need a project. The moment a gap opens in your schedule, your hands reach for something to fill it. Not because you love being busy, but because stillness is where the noise lives. When you stop doing, the thinking starts. And the thinking isn't peaceful. It's a review, a rehearsal, a list of things you should have done, might have missed, need to prepare for. People say you're driven, ambitious, never idle. And from the outside, that looks like vitality. But the cost is this: you've lost access to rest. Real rest, not sleep, not vacation, but the kind where your brain isn't running a background task. Doing nothing has become your body's least safe state. You don't rest because rest doesn't feel like rest. It feels like falling behind. And here's what that costs your body. Your cortisol never fully drops. Your muscles never fully unclench. Your brain never enters the recovery mode it needs because you've taught it that recovery is a luxury reserved for people who finished everything, and you never finish everything. That's the design. And that's the productivity trap at its core. The thing that looks like ambition is actually a nervous system that has forgotten how to be idle without interpreting idleness as danger. Number 6, you double-check everything. The lock, the email, the stove, the wording. You reread the message before sending, then you reread it after sending. You check you lock the door, walk away, and come back to check again. You review a finished piece of work 3 times looking for the error you're certain is there, even when it isn't. From the outside, nobody notices. It's all internal, all quiet, all invisible. The cost? Time. Enormous, invisible quantities of time consumed by verification rituals that produce nothing except a brief, fragile sense of safety that dissolves the moment the next thing needs checking. You're not being careful. You're being held hostage by a system that cannot accept good enough. And because the checking happens inside your head, inside your phone, inside the extra 10 minutes nobody sees you spending, no one ever knows how much of your day is spent not creating, not resting, not living, but simply confirming that nothing has gone wrong yet. The worst part? If you told someone how much time you spend checking, they wouldn't believe you, because the output looks normal. The perfectionism is invisible. The tax is private. Number 7, the deepest sign. You function perfectly, without visible strain, until the moment you crash. And when you crash, nobody sees it coming, least of all you. Because high-functioning anxiety doesn't decline gradually, it holds. It holds. It holds. And then it drops. One day, the emails stop getting answered. The energy disappears. The person who was always on suddenly goes dark. And the people around them are stunned. You seemed so fine. What happened? What happened is that the engine ran out of fuel, but the dashboard never showed the gauge dropping, because high-functioning anxiety doesn't have a gauge. It has an override switch that keeps you going past empty. The cost is the crash itself, not just the exhaustion, but the shame. Because the person who built their identity on functioning doesn't know how to be the person who can't. The collapse isn't just physical, it's an identity crisis. Every system they built to cope was also the system that kept them from noticing they needed help. And by the time they notice, they're not tired. They're broken in a way that just push through can no longer fix, and people around them offer advice that makes it worse. You just need a vacation. Just take a break. As if the person who built their entire coping system around never stopping can simply stop. The crash isn't a rest. It's the system failing, and no one prepared them for what comes after the override switch finally breaks. If you recognized yourself in these 7 signs, I need to tell you the thing nobody else will. The fact that you're functioning doesn't mean you're fine. It means you're skilled at hiding, and the hiding has a cost that compounds silently, like interest, on a debt nobody told you about. You don't have to earn the right to struggle. You don't have to crash before it counts. And you don't have to wait until the system breaks to admit that the system was never sustainable in the first place. The thing that looks like discipline might be fear. The thing that looks like productivity might be a nervous system that's terrified of what happens when it stops. And naming that, even just quietly, even just to yourself, is the beginning of something the anxiety never planned for. An honest inventory of what it's actually costing you. At Inner Lens, that's what we look at. Not the surface performance, but the quiet cost underneath. If you want to keep going, the next video follows this thread into the body itself. The subtle signs you're emotionally numb and don't realize it. It's right here.